Okay, good afternoon, everybody. A little hour behind or so. I had to go down to where my brother-in-law worked. I had to go do a few things. So I'm glad you got the video, Lucy, and went through this time. You got it. Hey, Spoz. We'll probably do two shows. Go 3 hours. 3 hours. We'll try to do two shows at 3 hours. So I'll check her page right now. Did anybody find a clip about Hillary getting arrested soon?
They just introduced a new federal assault weapon.
Okay, no video yet on her page. Oh wait. Oh.
Hi everybody, I am Holly Celiano and I'm my guest back, Scott Brunswick. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Holly. Pleasure to be here as always.
It's been a while since you've been on and people
Maria, I'm glad you made it in. I just looked at that Holly lady. She has an hour video with a guy named Scott about Masara. Should we watch that one or not? It's Scott. It's Scott Brunswick. Uh, Brunswick, I think is. So is that a good one to play? Yeah, I just found it. Actually, Spas, that was on Mel's page.
Story I wanted to share with you, a true story. Other butters.
I'm finding so much stuff. I just found out one guy again. He has another one out. That's 9 minutes. Oh boy. I took Chicken to the park today. I sent the videos out. Arrow. I had to wait. I had to go do a few things, and that's why I have an hour. I'm gonna try to do two shows, 3 hours. And we do got one Billy Bean so far.
Further out in the open ocean.
See if KK will be coming in or not. Yeah, we got one Billy is 24. Omar, Omar.
Panicking as we
Thanks, Carol. Okay, let's start off with. I gotta find a. I don't know if she came out yet or not. I lost her video.
There's this nationwide camera. This is called a snow.
I got a two-part 4-minute one, you guys. Secret spells of the English language. Well, listen to that. We're reading the first two. See how that is.
Creative instruments. So now, if you're going to take the creative language and the creative instruments and you start to speak English, here's what happens. And by the way, these revelations came out in 1998 with Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse. If you're just beginning in this kind of like initiation into reality and to the truth that shall set you free, you might want to start with Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse and then graduate to where we now are, Love, the Real Da Vinci Code. So Dr. Palaio back in 1996 decided to have a couple visions. He saw numbers and letters on his windshield, and he learned that there's an alphanumeric for every letter, just like in gematria. For every letter, there's a number, an alphanumeric relationship. And that he took the words, the English language, like you see here, A to Z, 1 to 26. So it's 1 through 9, 1 through 9, 1 through 8. You see that? Now, you take the words faith, trust, and God. Oh, isn't that interesting? They're all 8s. The infinity sign. Well, so then what you do is you take the number 8. And in the Bible, the Creator never adds, never subtracts, always multiplies. This acceleration of your divine inspiration and your spiritual evolution is exponentially accelerating because it's multiplying. And so you take the numbers 8 and do the multiples of 8. 1 times 8 equals 8. 2 times 8 equals 16, well, 1 plus 6 is 7. 3 times 8 equals 24, plus 2 plus 4 is 6. 4 times 8 equals 32, where 3 plus 2 is 5. You see the countdown pattern, don't you? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See it? Which is the what? The English alphabet backwards. So the sacred languages of Hebrew, ancient Aramaic, Babylonian, and Sanskrit were sacred. They were considered sacred languages. Why? Because when you spoke them, the resonant energy had an immediate divine intercommunication, communion, and a divine interpersonal connection. You had this heartfelt, loving understanding. So now you take, interesting thing, you take the English alphabet backwards, add it to the English alphabet forwards. 8 plus 1 is 9, 7 plus 2 is 9, 6 plus 3 is 9, 5 plus 4 is 9. It's always 9. What does that tell you? It means that there's a perfection in the English language.
Okay, part 1. I got part 2. Interesting video.
and direct the upbringing of their child as a fundamental liberty. We're forced from a young age through many types of indoctrination, and our parents are helping in this process. Look at the word childhood. A hood is used to cloak and hide. The etymology of children is chill and dren. Chill means cold. Dren is a name meaning a strong and healthy individual. So children are strong individuals who must be chilled, made cold. Stay with me, this will all come together. In Ballantyne's 1948 Law Dictionary, the term human being says sea monster. When we see monster, we get the definition, a human being by birth, but in some part resembling a lower animal. In the Oxford New English Dictionary of 1901, a human is defined as belonging or relative to man, as distinguished from God or superhuman beings. So these definitions are telling us we're monsters. The word live backwards is evil. Our language is telling us we're born as monsters who are bleak and lifeless to a pair who rents us out to the government and other corporations that indoctrinate us. Our childhood is spent under a cloak and we're evil when we live. Our sentences are made up of words. The word sisters in Greek mythology were fates or witches who controlled the fates of man. Every word we say directly affects our reality and ultimately our fate. The Egyptian deity Thoth is said to have invented language and writing. The original purpose was to use words for magic. The words write and write are pronounced the same. A rite is a ceremony or ritual. Whenever we're writing with words or speak, we are initiating a ritual. Books contain chapters. A chapter often refers to a sect of a secret society or religious order. To page someone is to summon them. Pages in books made of words are summoning things to enslave or imprison our souls. The word grammar comes from the French word grammaire or grimoire. Grimoires were ancient magic books which contained instructions to summon demons. We wake up each morning. A wake is a funeral party held for the dead. At the beginning of each day, we say to each other, "Good morning." Mourning is what you do when you're sad for the loss of someone or something, by calling it a good morning. It's pretty masochistic if you ask me. We then go to work at our occupation. When we occupy something, it can mean being occupied by a military force, like in war. Many occupations are focused on money and the dog-eat-dog mentality. The dollar bill comes first before the environment or even each other. Therefore, we are committing war against each other. During each day, we work our occupation. We are the military occupiers. An urn is for the ashes of the dead. For the average 9-to-5 worker, it would have to be one of the weekdays in order to earn a living. I agree, you would have to be in a weekdays to earn a living. During the week, we become weaker and weaker until finally it's the weekend, and we have become weakened. Somebody or something who is weakened has no power. And during the weekend, many of us turn to drink alcohol. Alcohol comes from the Arabic word al-kul, which is a body-eating spirit. It's also the source of the word ghoul. We drink booze or booze. Booze are synonymous with spirits who scare you, but what can you expect when you're drinking spirits? Alcohol has always been a medium for entities to flow through, and the effects in part demonstrate.
So what do you guys think of those first two videos? That was kind of interesting. Our Bible lady came out with 3 short clips just a little bit ago, or new ones.
Russia planning space Pearl Harbor with nuclear weapon in orbit. U.S. military officials are warning that Russia may be preparing to deploy a nuclear weapon in space, a move that could threaten satellites and disrupt critical systems around the world. Officials warned that the effects would not be limited to military targets, but could spill over into civilian life, impacting everything from GPS services to commercial aviation.
Second country on that list would be Russia. You know, Russia remains a very historic and sophisticated space power. Yes, they have been hurt by economic sanctions, but they continue to invest in counter space weapons, with the most concerning reports being that they are potentially thinking about placing on orbit a nuclear ASAT weapon that would violate the Outer Space Treaty that they're a party to, and it would hold at risk everyone's satellites in low Earth orbit, and that would be a outcome that we just couldn't tolerate.
I mean, if the worst happened and there was a nuclear detonation in space, what would the impact be?
Yeah, depending on the size of that detonation and where it happened, we could expect that likely immediately within the first several hours to days, probably 1/3 of all satellites in low Earth orbit, and that's an altitude of about 100 miles up to probably about 1,200 miles. That's where the International Space Station is. So
Now, I just have a feeling, but it probably wouldn't be Russia. It's not.
Okay, I got two more.
Acts chapter 2. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance. And they were dwelling at Jerusalem, Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? And then it lists all the places that they were born. Now let's look at the word for tongues. It's a language. See, the gift of tongues is a language given to someone who's never learned it before to minister to someone who speaks that language. Now let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 14. Now, brethren, if I come unto you speaking with tongues, what shall I profit you? Except I shall speak to you either by revelation, or by knowledge, or by prophesying, or by doctrine. Verse 9, so likewise ye, except ye utter by the tongue words easy to understand, how shall it be known what is spoken? For ye shall speak into the air. You see, there's a gift for tongues and then a gift to interpret tongues. You need both. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 30, have all the gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? Verse 13, wherefore let him that speaketh in an unknown tongue pray that he may interpret. For if I pray in an unknown tongue, my spirit prayeth, but my understanding is unfruitful. In verse 19, Paul says, yet in the church I had rather speak 5 words with my understanding, that by my voice I might teach others also, than 10,000 words in an unknown tongue. This emphasizes the importance of communication, because our Lord is not a God of confusion. Verse 22, wherefore tongues are for a sign, not to them that believe, but to them that believe not. But prophesying serveth not for them that believe not, but for them which believe. There are, it may be, so many kinds of voices in the world, and none of them is without signification. This is talking about languages, not babble. We hear so many churches telling their congregation, you have to learn to speak tongues. You shouldn't have to learn something that is given to you by the Holy Spirit. Just saying. And everything done by the Holy Spirit is used for edification. If no one knows what you're saying, how is that edifying anyone? It's not. I would rather that ye all spake with tongues, but rather that ye prophesied. For greater is he that prophesieth than he that speaketh with tongues, except he interpret, that the church may receive edifying. Paul says he wishes everyone talked in tongues, because he did as well. He spoke different languages, not babble. There are many religions in this world that do speak tongues, and it is babble, including paganism, shamanism, voodoo, and certain Eastern traditions. Also Buddhist, Islamic sects, and modern movements like Japan's God Light Association. And they're all used for spirit possession or divine insight. I'm sure we've all seen the videos of people speaking in babble and then acting possessed, looking like they're seizing on the floor. I mean, I've seen people speak babble in front of a congregation, moan, very sexually, and look like they're doing a sexual act in front of the whole congregation. And I'll tell you what, that person was sick for a whole month. And I'm sure that wasn't a coincidence. So to summarize this, tongues are languages. It's really that simple. You don't need any divine inspiration to understand scripture when it comes to this. The Bible is simple, and even my kids can read this and understand what it says. But if you've been indoctrinated to think that it is something else, then this video is probably going to make you angry. But I've shown you the scripture, and a lot of people are still going to have cognitive dissonance because of it. But listen up.
Okay, I got 2 so far done with there. I got 1 more. I hope those were the ones she had over 4,000 likes or views.
As air fills with toxins linked to heart attacks. Thousands of Americans are breathing unhealthy air across parts of Georgia, South Carolina, and Oregon as officials warn residents to stay indoors whenever possible. Air quality maps on Tuesday showed sharply elevated levels of PM 2.5 microscopic particles consisting of toxic organic compounds or heavy metals emitted from vehicles, industry, and wood burning, creating hazardous conditions. In Augusta, Georgia, and neighboring areas of South Carolina, including North Augusta, air quality index AQI readings reached 166, classified as unhealthy for all residents. And today in Georgia, the air quality index is 126. Now, why could this be happening? Well, we all know that we've been bombarded with chemtrails lately, but this is also a very significant factor because it looks like my state is burning along with all the other states around it. And I have family in some of these areas, so please be praying for all of these people that's affected. And what's crazy is it's been raining. They're saying this is caused by a drought, but we've had rain. And our forecast looks like the next week we're going to get a lot too. But y'all keep us in your prayers because I don't even want to take this little one outside right now. Listen up. Americans across 3 U.S. states.
So how was those 3 ones there? We had 5 important ones there I played already. Okay, I hope those ones are good. Rory, I'm gonna try to do the 2 hours or 2 3-hour shows. The next one is 7. And Maria, you can tell me about this one.
One day stand before Jesus Christ, not as a teacher, not as a friend, but as the righteous judge of all creation. That moment is already set. Hebrews 9:27 says, "It is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment." But here's what most people, even many Christians, don't realize. There are 3 specific questions Jesus will ask you on that day, and your answers to those questions will determine one thing: heaven or hell, forever. That's why this message is so critical, because these aren't random questions. They're not based on opinion or tradition. They are revealed directly in Scripture. Jesus himself gave us a glimpse of what that final judgment will look like. And today, I'm going to walk you through each one. So before we go any further, make the decision right now. Watch this video all the way through. Don't skip it. Don't pause it. This may be the most important message you ever hear in your life. Because one day, you'll stand before Jesus and nothing else will matter. But before we look at the first question, we need to understand the moment itself. What exactly is Judgment Day? And why does it matter? It's not just a religious idea, it's not a metaphor, and it's definitely not just a dramatic scene from a movie. Judgment Day is a real, guaranteed appointment that every human being will face. The Bible makes this clear in Romans 14:10 through 12. We will all stand before the judgment seat of God. So then, each of us will give an account of ourselves to God. Not just some, all of us. That includes pastors, politicians, teenagers, business leaders, stay-at-home parents. No one is exempt. In Revelation 20:12, the Apostle John describes this moment. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened, and the dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the
Everybody
books.
seen this one?
Every thought,
Is that
word,
right?
and action will be revealed. But God is not only judging our behavior, He's examining the motives behind it. As 2 Corinthians 5:10 says, we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due. This is more than punishment or reward. It's about truth. It's the day when nothing hidden remains hidden. The masks come off. The real you stands before the real God. And when that day comes, Jesus won't start by asking how many good deeds you did or how many rules you kept. He'll begin with something far more personal. The first question God will ask you on Judgment Day is this: what did you do with my son? This question is not about church membership, religious performance, or how many Christian events you attended. It is not about your reputation among believers or your knowledge of theology. This is the most personal, eternal, and unavoidable question you will ever face, because it has nothing to do with outward appearance and everything to do with your relationship with Jesus Christ. In John 3 verse 18, Jesus says, whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. The question is simple. Did you believe in Jesus or not? Not in theory, not from a distance, but personally. 1 John 5 verse 12 is even clearer. He who has the Son has life. He who does not have the Son of God does not have life. You either have him or you don't. There is no middle ground. And John 14 verse 6 leaves no room for other options. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. When Jesus asks you, what did you do with me? He's not talking about religious activity. He's asking, did you receive me? Did you trust me? Did you follow me? Did you surrender your life to me? Let's look at 3 common responses people might give to this question and how Jesus will answer. I tried to be a good person. This is one of the most common answers in the world. People say, I was kind, I gave to charity, I treated others with respect, I stayed away from crime. I tried my best. But here's what Jesus will say. Your good works could never pay for your sin. Only my blood can. The Bible is clear. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. No one is good enough. No one can earn heaven. Salvation is not a reward for effort. It is a gift of grace. I went to church. I volunteered. I served in the ministry. This person was active in church life. Maybe they even held a position of leadership. They knew the Bible. They prayed publicly. They looked faithful on the outside. But Jesus will say, you knew about me, but you didn't know me. You had religion, but not relationship. This is the person described in Matthew 7:22-23. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and do many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Christian activity is meaningless without true intimacy with Christ. Knowing about Jesus is not the same as knowing him. Serving in his name is not the same as surrendering to his lordship. I received you as my Savior. This is the response that brings joy to heaven. This person knows they were a sinner in need of grace. They recognize that only Jesus could save them, and they place their full faith in him. They didn't trust in their works. They trusted in his cross. To this person, Jesus will say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord." This is what salvation looks like. Not perfection, performance, but personal faith in the Lord Jesus Christ as Savior. So let me ask you now, if Jesus stood before you today, looked you every single...
Okay, I hope that one was okay. I got another new one, 9 minutes, and then we'll play Billy Bean after.
I wanted to share with you a true story. And it has to do with a friend of mine who's a medical doctor. He's a psychiatrist. His name is Claude Curran.
I'm not
Actually,
sure about
his
this
mother was
guy.
Calabrese. His father was Irish. And his name is Dr. Claude Curran.
I don't think I should play that one. We're going to get to Billy Bean right now.
For the day, or plunge into a long weekend. With IHG's 20 hotel brands, you can guest how you guest.
Bitcoin exposure is just a few clicks away. Meet iBit. No wallets, no keys, no crypto.
Welcome to Truth by Billy Bean. Today's date, April 23, 2026. Time in Texas about 9 a.m. And thanks for like, subscribe, and share. Some of the things we'll talk about: life on Mars, President Trump, shoot and kill, and also his list. And we have this Secretary of the Navy has been fired for mutiny. And the IRGC Besiege Group. Besiege Group is the part of IRGC who, in January on, takes machine guns and shoots dead in the streets unarmed Iranian citizens. Now, about 100 of them have been poisoned. Plus, so let's get started. So we have things coming out about space weather. I have a Patriot subscriber who says, I have a prayer chair and I sit the same place every day. And so I notice the position of the sun and that it's in different locations, in her room where her prayer chair is located. One day it's here, the next day it's several feet over. And I submit this. I believe it isn't the sun that's moving, it's the earth tilting. So yeah, that's going on. And today in space weather, we've had 2 M1 class flares from different parts of the sun. We anticipate a CME will be logged by NASA shortly in response to that. We also have that BP Earthwatch brings out that CERN is now, when CERN is turned on, it's actually opening a part of Earth's electromagnetic shield. Now, and it's believed by some that this allows ancient ETs to come into the Earth domain. I submit this. These ancient ETs could be the fallen angels. And yes, that I believe that is part of the reason we have the shield around Earth that protects us from cosmic rays, radiation from the sun, but also from evil things coming in. I do believe that. Now, BP says June 29, CERN is going to turn off. And right now, while CERN is turned on, it changes the vibration of the Earth. Now, as I've put out before, the Schumann vibration of the Earth is necessary for human health, both physical, mental, and emotional. So it appears that as CERN has been turned on, this would also impact human health. June 29, they're turning off CERN for upgrades, which will be dictated by AI coming from, apparently we've had some crystals secured inside the Earth that has ET technology data on it. AI is using this technology as a basis for its upgrade to CERN, which will take place later in the summer. So June 29, CERN turns off, and the Earth should be then returning to a natural Schumann vibration. So we can look ahead to feeling better in the summer. And we have this from BC Bagley. That, UK passed a law, and I'll give my perspective on it.
Tim, I guess we have to leave. It's Ladies' Day, I guess Kay said in chat. I guess we have to change our gender today.
Booking.com has all kinds of stays because some want a house in the desert. Others do not. Find exactly what you're booking for. Booking.com, booking.yeah.
Time for an oil change, Philip. That last place took 3 hours. Little Henry remembers, right, Little Henry?
Silence your oil.
Making it illegal for individuals 18 years old and younger to buy cigarettes. Now, we all know that the cigarette industry has been going down globally, as has the alcohol consumption. I found that strange, but when you have brewers coming out and winemakers saying, and other sources saying that global consumption of alcohol has dramatically come down in the past 5 to 10 years. And we know smoking cigarettes has also come down. Now, in the UK, I find this curious. The UK does not make it illegal to vape. And it's my understanding that vaping is even less healthy than smoking cigarettes. But hey, vaping is very popular, makes a lot of money, and could give more money to political campaigns. I'm just saying. So that's going on. And we have in China 2 Honda car manufacturers are closing down. They're going to stop making their gas engine vehicles. Instead, they're going hard in for electric vehicles. I got this to say to China. What are you thinking? That doesn't correlate to the real world. And we have this from David Nino Rodriguez. We saw Kash Patel come out recently and say, look for arrest for the deep state, involvement with the 2020.
Hey, Lucy, I got breaking news out of your state. Benny has a video. I'll play it after Billy. It says Pennsylvania State Senate passed a bill banning males from participating in female sports in school. That just came out.
20 presidential election and so on, and then the Atlantic coming out and smearing him, saying he had a problem with alcohol. Well, we've had also another person pass away that's being associated with the 11 scientists and engineers associated with NASA and Los Alamos disappearing or dying in the past few years. And that is David Wilcock. Now, many people are familiar with him being on Ancient Aliens. But Michael Jaco reports, what circumstances are available surrounding his death. Now, we have sources that say David Wilcock had a weapon in front of his home, and the police were called about a mental health issue.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete...
And then he committed suicide. I submit this, that I believe the scientists and engineers associated with NASA and Los Alamos, many of them are said to have committed suicide or passed away from this or that. However, a telltale sign is autopsies are not allowed. So David Wilcock's recent death goes in the same basket. And we have this. We have that, Professor Bernstein from Israel says a third U.S. carrier Bush is en route around Africa. Yeah, we'll have 3 carriers there, the Lincoln, the Bush, and the Ford in the Middle East. We've been seeing a massive drought fire in Georgia and Florida, 34,000 acres. And we've been hearing that as I put out with that comment from my Patriot subscriber about the earth tilting, that we would see changes in our climate. And part of that is predicted to be massive areas of much more significant drought with very low humidity levels. And we're seeing that happen now in Georgia and Florida. And we have this also in San Antonio yesterday, San Antonio, Texas. Very bizarre incident. Texas. We had a subdivision. One home exploded, natural gas, it was believed. Fire department, gas department comes out. They're all there in the street. The neighbors are out in the street. And then about an hour later, a house, 2 houses down from the first house that exploded, also exploded and caught on fire. Now it's being investigated immediately by the DOT and the NTSB, in addition to local police and fire. Very bizarre. We have this from David Nino Rodriguez, recently interviewed, 107. So we saw yesterday a redistricting in Virginia by the Dems, working to the Dems' benefit. It's coming out now, surprise, surprise, that the Dems cheated. And that the Republicans have the evidence, which they'll be presenting in courts, which will take several months. So, that's going on. And we have this, Best in Taylor. So we have geophysicist Stan Deyo now working with geophysicist Stefan Burns. And this is regarding, I believe, predicting earthquakes based on the movement of the planets. Standeo years ago did this very effectively based on data that was open source from the Navy, but then when Stan could accurately predict earthquakes, the Navy site went away. Now, we saw a few years ago an astronomer from Chile. He was in his 90s and has since passed away. He also could predict earthquakes based on positions of planets and so on in space, as could a Keith Hill, I believe is his name, interviewed a couple of years ago by Carrie Cassidy. So that's going on. But Stan Deyo and Stephen Burns are taking the position that very soon we could see the axial seamount, which is located in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Oregon, 16,000 miles down. And I believe Mike from Around the World also has put out information about that. Axial seamount is an underwater volcano exploding, which, according to Stan and Stefan, could cause a 10 magnitude earthquake. So what kind of tsunami would that produce from Canada down to Mexico? That's going on. And we have this. Also, Professor Bernstein from Israel is talking about, the IRGC fired on 3 ships yesterday because they said the ships didn't have clearance from the IRGC. We have this from U.S. Intel. Now, I find this curious. Somalia. So we have... up here we have Yemen, and we have the Houthis, a proxy for Iran, who in the past have closed the Bab el-Mandeb Strait that's between Yemen and also Africa. And we have Somalia right here. So we have a strait, a narrow strait, similar to the narrow Strait of Hormuz. Now we have Somalia coming out for some reason. And hey, what about that Somalia population in Minnesota and Michigan? Just saying. Somalia now will close the Bab al-Mandeb Strait only for ships coming to or from Israel. I got this to say to Somalia: shut up. And we have this Europe, who's been on a tear for decades to have green sources of electricity, closing down their nuclear power plants and saying, oh, we can make enough electricity from windmills and other non-oil and gas sources. Europe, shut up. Now Europe is really in pain because they're not getting their oil and gas from the Middle East. Lufthansa, a major airline in Germany, just canceled 20,000 flights. That's going on. We have this from U.S. Intel.
The little things really do matter, like riding your bike for a good cause, sharing your lunch, and building things for people. If we each do one little thing, it doesn't feel little anymore.
A steamy, relaxing spa. Soothing eucalyptus bubble bath.
Since the ceasefire,
We got,
about 2 weeks ago, the U.S. military has been surging. Now we have a number from U.S. intel, 819 logistical transports, much more than the U.S. military has done in the past. And we have this. Also, in the past 24 hours, we've seen in the Strait of Hormuz 30 Iranian speedboats along the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf, allegedly mining the Persian Gulf. And estimates are, based on what is being seen by satellite, that it could take 6 months to clear the mines from the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. And we have this from the U.S. State Department, April 22, yesterday. Evac immediately, Iran and Lebanon. And we have this from P. Gurus. There has been a regime change in Iran. Now it's the IRGC in charge. And we've seen today's Thursday. Yesterday, it came out that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth had fired the top civilian associated with the U.S. Navy, called the Secretary of Navy, effective immediately. So that came out yesterday. Now we're learning what happened from real raw news. This Phelan, Phelan, and his first name is John Phelan, civilian, businessman, a major donor to President Trump. So he got the civilian Secretary of Navy position. However, Phelan sounds like he doesn't have a whole lot of neurons firing, because last Thursday and Friday, he talked with CENTCOM Admiral Cooper and Chief of the Naval Operations and Joint Chiefs, Admiral Kendall. And Phelan said and recommended to Cooper and Kendall that they defy President Trump and not fire on civilian infrastructure in Iran. Phelan, do you know what sedition means? So he's out. And we have this from Tusi TV. Reza Pavladi, he's Iranian who'd been in exile in the U.S. for decades, believed to be supported by the U.S. to head up a transitional government in Iran, has been making a tour of Europe. Yesterday, he was speaking in Berlin, Germany, where apparently insufficient security had taken place, and he was hit by orange paint. So that's going on. And we have this. Tusi TV has contacts inside Iran. The IRGC Basij group, 100 have been poisoned. We don't have details yet on what type of poisoning, but this happened yesterday. Some have died, and many are in the hospital. And we have this. We're hearing that the U.S. military is seizing and boarding additional vessels along the line of the U.S. military blockade. And we have this. Explosions were heard yesterday in Tehran, possibly by drone explosions. And it's unknown if these drones came from the IRGC or from the Immortal Guard name for the unified people of Iran against their current government. But 2 explosions were heard early Wednesday in east and west Tehran. And so that's going on. And we have this. The U.S. military.
For 3 minutes.
All right, here we go. Look at that focus. Well, he saw the streak, adjusted. That is perfect execution right there.
Listen, Tony, that's all about patience and preparation paying off.
It's easier to play when you've got a plan.
Everybody knows that the place to find a place is
Apartments.com.
Yes, did board another vessel called the MT Majestic. And it was coming from Iran. CENTCOM confirmed this and put out this information. Excuse me. Also, that the U.S. military blockade has turned around 31 vessels. Go back to your Iranian port. And we have this. Today, President Trump gave a new order to the U.S. military. And I mentioned the IRGC speedboats mining the Strait of Hormuz. Today, President Trump, new order to the U.S. military, shoot and kill the IRGC speedboats in the Strait of Hormuz because they're putting out mines, and it's going to take estimates now 6 months to clear the mines. So shoot and kill. And we have this. The U.S. military also now is actively engaged in mine sweeping the Strait of Hormuz. So President Trump, shoot and kill. And we have this. We had 2 M-class flares in the sun, likely a CME in a couple of days. NASA rovers on Mars have found 7+ different types of organic compounds. And recall, in 5 years, we're supposed to go to Mars. President Trump, according to Crux and other sources, has a naughty and nice list. I've been saying President Trump has a list and he's checking it twice. This has to do with nations involved in the 2020 U.S. presidential coup and other efforts against the U.S. We saw recently half of NATO nations actively moving against the U.S. in their attempt to take down nukes inside Iran to protect America and Europe and the world. So we've seen these European nations turn against the U.S. President Trump, it's put out by Crux, has a naughty and nice list. On the nice list, he has in Europe, Israel, and other parts of the world, South Korea, Poland, the Baltics, Germany, Romania. Others on the naughty list include the UK, France, Italy, Spain, and I submit also Venezuela and Cuba and Canada, Serbia, and other nations. Yeah, so that's going on. That completes my flash update. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Bitcoin.
Okay, that's the first Billy. We got a lot of short ones coming up, like 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 10 minutes. The next 22-minute one will be Benny, but I'll only get the other ones first. That what I read was off of Benny's community page, you guys. So there was no video. This is on a community page. Pennsylvania. All right, let's go with these short ones here first. We got 2.5.
Not a dead rock hurling through space at unimaginable speeds. Instead, it is a living, breathing electrical machine. and the single source of a self-perpetuating power generator. The sun pumps 1.8 billion amps of current into the ionosphere, the upper layer of our atmosphere. This creates a voltage of 240,000 to 500,000 volts between the ionosphere and the ground. The atmosphere acts as a giant capacitor, storing this electrical energy. But the real power comes from the oceans. As tides move seawater through Earth's magnetic field, they generate electricity, just as a wire moving through a magnetic field generates current. Every kilometer of coastline produces about 25,000 amps. Multiply it by the 1.16 million kilometers of global coastline, and you get a theoretical maximum of 29 billion amps. The reason that 29 billion amps from the ocean doesn't create a trillion-volt atmosphere is because the ocean is grounded to the lithosphere, the crust of the Earth. Unlike the clouds, which lift charge high into the sky to create a potential difference, the ocean currents are already at the bottom of the circuit. They are moving the ground rather than charging the top plate of the capacitor. During a severe geomagnetic storm, the power being dumped into the polar ionosphere can exceed 1,000 gigawatts. This electricity flows through the ground itself, following natural conductors, mineral veins, aquifers, fault lines. Ancient peoples knew these as ley lines, and they built their sacred sites at the intersections where the current is strongest. These intersections are spaced about 72 harmonic length units apart, another harmonic of the 72-year cycle. The current returns to the sun through the auroras, those beautiful light shows at the poles. The magnetic field focuses the current at the north from the south, creating the stunning curtains of light we call the northern and southern lights, a dance of energies. The dance changes color based on which wire in the atmosphere the current is hitting. Green is current hitting oxygen at lower altitudes. Red is the current hitting oxygen at very high altitudes. Blue and purple, current hitting nitrogen. This is not mysticism. This is measurable, verifiable electrical engineering on a planetary scale. The Earth is a machine, and we are part of its harmonic
circuit. Guys. Okay, science, right? The next one I got the minute a piece clips. Interesting. I don't think I ever played it.
Come for me. I didn't write this, but whatever you believe, keep that near and dear to your heart. Yeah, your heart's over here. Keep that near and dear to your heart. Here we go. 40 well-kept secrets that all U.S. slaves should be aware of. Yes, I said slaves. Do with that what you will. 1. The Revolutionary War was fraud. The United States did not actually declare independence from Great Britain or the King. 2. America is a British colony. 3. The King of England financed both sides of the Revolutionary War. 4. The gold fringe, symbolic of royalty, which is attached to the border of every U.S. flag hanging in every courtroom across America, symbolizes America being ruled to this day by Great Britain under international maritime admiralty law. 5. There are no judicial courts in America, and there have not been any since 1789. Judges do not enforce states' statutes and codes. Executive administrators enforce statutes and codes.
All right.
6. There have not been any judges in America since 1789. There have only been administrators. 7. The most powerful court in America is not the United States Supreme Court, but is the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. 8. If you are legal age and retain legal counsel in your defense, you are automatically assumed by the court to be mentally incompetent ward of the court and can therefore be remanded indefinitely to any mental institution of the court's choosing. 9. You cannot use the U.S. Constitution to defend yourself because you are not a party to it. 10. The people does not include you and I. 11. You own no property. Read the deed to the property you think is yours. You are listed as a tenant. Legally, the term being refers to an animal impersonating, person is underlined, a human, such as a slave. Under the law, slaves cannot own property. 12. We are slaves and own absolutely nothing, not even what we think are our children. Read your birth certificate. Your mother is listed as an informant. 13. George Washington divided states into districts based upon ritualistic practice of dissecting Masonic squares. This is why even today so many towns are built on the square. America truly is the land of the free, Freemasons that is.
So far, all right. 5 more.
Symbols and architecture.
Uh-oh. Oh, they're not letting me play it, you guys. See if I can do number 3. I can do number 3, guys.
The Creature of Jekyll Island. If you haven't heard of it, basically it's a book written about how they created the IRS. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. Number 19. The Federal Reserve was never legally ratified on the floor of the House and the Senate and is not a United States agency, government agency. It is privately owned pyramid scheme perpetrated against Americans by the most unethical group of world bankers, J.P. Morgan, Paul Warburg, and J.D. Rockefeller. 20. The IRS isn't a U.S. government agency, but an agency of IMF. What is IMF? International Monetary Fund. Look it up. The IRS was devised by bankers to collect national debt, which the bankers created themselves by greatly inflating the cost of financing during World War I and World War II, which these same bankers instigated in the first place. So this is where it gets real weird and interesting. The IRS then began collecting the income tax, which directly imposed on the American people as a means to ensure perpetuation of an archaic class system known as serfdom or slavery. In addition to the tax never being legally ratified, it is a direct, unproportioned tax on the labor of the average American worker. And so therefore, according to the Constitution, is not even a legal tax. So just a sidebar, according to my research, taxes are both voluntary and mandatory. What do I mean by that? In the 50 states, they're voluntary. And U.S. territories like D.C., I think Puerto Rico, wherever there's a U.S. territory, that's where they're mandatory. So do what you want, but just know that taxes are both constitutional and unconstitutional depending where you live. 21. The 1040 tax form is quite literally a form of tribute paid to Britain. You can look this up, IRS publication 6209. 22. The IMF is an agency of the UN. You can look it up. Black Laws Dictionary, 6th edition, page 816.
She making any sense, you guys?
The U.S. has not had a treasury since 19.
Ah.
21.
I guess I can't play anymore. They won't let me. We're moving on to the next videos. All right, let's go ahead and get Vinny's in. It's 1 day minute.
Roundtable meeting about fraud and how to attack it with the entire department, with all the department heads. It was very impressive. Of course, everybody's in favor of this. And I asked about the Somali daycare fraud. And he just straight up jumped right in and said, Stephen Miller's upstairs, and he has proof that Ilhan Omar lied on her immigration forms. We have that paperwork. We know she did this. And now we're looking for how to take action. Can you fill us in? Do you know what's going to happen? Is the Trump administration going to go there? The floor is yours.
The whole file is being reviewed. A lot of smart people are on it. Stay tuned.
Could you color for us what of the elucidated and many crimes there are that it could be? Because
I cannot get ahead.
There's like a lot of potential things that could have been there.
I can't get ahead of the investigation, but I know that some of this. I know people that are involved in the review, and they're really smart people, and it's in good hands.
All right. It's in good hands. Okay, we got the Allstate endorsement from Tom Homan, and a round of applause. We're going to your questions. Here we go. That was inspiring, wasn't it? It's amazing.
Hi, my question is for Tom Homan. How is your role different under the Trump administration versus with the Obama administration?
The first 4 years of Obama administration, it was pretty much the same. The second 4 years is when he turned 180 degrees and stopped us from doing anything. The Trump in Obama, I ran enforcement and removal operations, which is third in command ICE. So I was in charge of immigration enforcement. Under President Trump, I'm the border czar. So my main responsibility is the border, plus oversee the deportation and find these kids. So I got a little bit different job now. But working for President Trump, I work for the greatest president of my lifetime. That's the difference. And President Trump lets men and women of law enforcement do their job.
Thank you.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi.
My question is also for Mr. Homan. Hi, how's it going? I'm from Chico, Texas. And we are experiencing a severe abuse of the H-1B visa program. So what is being done to address this?
That's not in my wheelhouse. I can tell you that there are people at the White House Policy, Legislative Affairs, working with members of Congress on addressing it. There's no answer yet. There's people looking at what should be limited, what should be expanded. I don't want to get ahead of the White House announcement on that, but it's being worked on as we speak. I know because I was up on Hill last week and I met some folks that are working on it. I gave them my opinions, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Ezra, thank you.
So the market has a clock?
So the Realtor.com market clock tracks data like inventory, time on market.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is for Mr. Homan. I'm curious about how your security during this administration, how are you going to impact it long term? How are the changes in the immigration enforcement you're doing right now going to affect us in the long run? And how could the next administration kind of reinforce that and continue that?
Well, having the most secure border in history of the nation gives us strong national security, because now we know who's coming in, what's coming in, where it's coming in, why it's coming in, right? Under the last administration, the border was wide open. So we don't know what came in or who came in. Like I said, 2 million gotaways. So we need to maintain the secure border. That's why I'm working really hard right now with Rodney Scott, head of the Border Patrol, along with Mark Wayne Mullen, to making sure we build the infrastructure that's going to last for decades. I look today, since President Trump's been in the Oval Office, we already put over 75 miles wall up. By the time he leaves office, we'll have 1,416 miles of wall. And that's going to make the border even safer. And let me tell you, wall that's going to last for decades. And the wall isn't just for, security and slowing illegal immigration. Walls save lives. And let me explain that. The most vulnerable people that come across that border are women and children. They can't get over that wall, which means they go to a place where there's not a wall. And what's waiting on them? Men and women of the Border Patrol is going to take care of those humanitarian needs right away. So the wall saves lives. So by the time President Trump leaves office, that's a lot of wall. Now, also, we've just hired, or in the process of hiring, we ain't got them on board yet, 10,000 new deportation officers. So we'll have a stronger workforce that's going to be out there enforcing immigration law every day. Finally, we're building detention capacity that we never had before. The most we had under Trump 45 is about 55,000 people in detention. We're building 100,000 beds. So there's not going to be any more excuse. We don't have bed space. We have plenty of bed space. If we turn those beds around every 30 days, 100,000 times 30, we'll get to the numbers that American people want us to get it to on deportations, no problem.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for visiting Baylor.
You got it.
Hi, I had a question for Mr. Homan. My question is there any legislation in place right now that would survive the next Democrat president in the office making an executive order canceling all the work that has been done right now?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. That's my concern. If Congress doesn't get off their ass and pass legislation, next president's coming on and do everything we did. Except, the wall be there and the beds will be there, but they can hamstring ICE, and start accepting hundreds of thousands of fraudulent asylum claims. Congress needs to legislate and put this into law. So, do I have high hopes of that? Not right now. Elections matter. We had HR 2, which is a great bill. Passed the House, Senate wouldn't even put it on the floor. And that's where the American people need to stand up and start raising hell. Secure border should be a nonpartisan issue because the things I just talked about, the number of deaths, the number of sexual assaults, everybody should agree you can't have strong national security if you don't have secure borders. But it is not. The left have lost their minds. So my fear is that if they get back into control, they'll just issue new executive orders and do away with a lot of stuff. So please, call your local congressman, your senator, tell them to get off their ass and pass some laws that's going to secure this nation and protect this nation from foreign invasion.
He's right. I thought that was an important one there. I got another new mini video. Yep, get this one in.
Bet with FanCash and
Welcome,
minute.
lions. Enter in peace. Giraffes, welcome aboard. Elephants, you are safe here. Zebras, come in. Whoa, I don't know, guys. Maybe you should take the second boat.
Have you ever wondered what if it's just all true? The stuff in the Sunday school songs and the Indiana Jones movies and found in the actual ancient texts of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Bible? What if it all existed? What if it exists still to this day? What if there is indeed an actual Ark of the Covenant that can be found? Apparently, secret CIA files claim to have found the Ark of the Covenant. Maybe that's what they're hiding at Area 51. You never know. Gentlemen. The Shroud of Turin, the cloth that was placed on Christ at his burial, now effectively proved to be authentic and to be something that could have never been created at the time that it was found to have the likeness of Jesus Christ in it, because it would need 100 billion kilojoules of nuclear irradiated energy to shine through it, and that's just something they didn't have in antiquity. So what if the Shroud of Turin's real? What if this is the actual burial cloth of Christ, and this is the actual face of Christ? It's very cool. It's very neat what is happening right now in science and in discovery, and with the technological tools that can be used to authenticate what we believe as Christians. And I'm a simple Christian. I read my Bible and I believe it. That's it, right? That's why they call it faith. And faith without sight. But sometimes sight is very cool. The children's story, that of course is a song or a book in every single Sunday school across America, is Noah's Ark. It includes cute animals and a fun story about God saving mankind when we had fallen off a cliff. And of course, there's plenty of cute songs and animal images to go along with it. That's why my kids like it. Why I am very interested in this story is because there is now a archaeological finding of Noah's Ark that is very cool. Get a load of this. Noah's Ark mystery deepens as underground tunnels found in Turkey mountaintop match exactly the Bible blueprint. Come on. High in the mountains of Turkey, a mysterious geological formation sits. Some researchers believe that it could be the remains of Noah's Ark. This is what it looks like right here. Turkey is important because Turkey is where a place called Mount Ararat is. Mount Ararat is where in Genesis it says Noah's Ark was finally crested onto land once more and eventually came to rest. And this is where Mount Ararat is, right here in the very, very eastern region of Turkey. It's a massive mountain. That's what it looks like. Humongous mountain. Not terribly far from Mount Ararat is where this extremely peculiar archaeological find is, right here. The high mountains of Turkey, a mysterious geological formation sits that some researchers believe could be Noah's Ark. Why do they believe that? Because they've discovered underground tunnels inside of whatever this is. All right, here we go. Andrew Jones, an independent researcher with the Noah's Ark scans, used ground-penetrating radar to uncover a network of corridors converging on a hollow central chamber. He dubbed this the atrium. Jones linked the discovery of the Bible's description of the ark, which states that they both contained 3 internal levels built to shelter Noah and his family and pairs of animals. God told Noah to bring the animals in, and these animals would have stayed there, plus Noah and his family. What's interesting is that these voids are lining up below the ground, and they're not just random. These tunnels also follow a pattern. They look below the soil using radar. He added further studies of infrared thermology, heat sensing technology that can uncover hidden structures underground, has also suggested the presence of ship-shaped hull buried beneath soil. Look at this. A team of American researchers working at the formation found near Mount Ararat has uncovered evidence, hidden tunnels, biblical account. Very cool. Located 18 miles south of Mount Ararat, Turkey's highest peak, formation has been known to the modern world for less than a century. According to local reports, heavy rains and earthquakes in 1948 washed away the surrounding mud, revealing the mysterious formation that is unlike really anything else that's discovered by a shepherd. And the Bible states that Noah's Ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat. The 150-day flood that drowned the earth and every living creature on it was sheltered inside of the wooden vessel. What's intriguing is that the formation sits in the mountain with a peak that some believe matches the ark's shape and dimensions. According to biblical measurements, the ark was 300 cubits long and 50 cubits wide and 30 cubits high. The idea that the ark landed on Mount Ararat has long sparked debate. Scientists argue that the formation is naturally occurring geological feature. Others are convinced that it could be something far more extraordinary, that it could be Noah's Ark. Researchers have added further studies using infrared thermology, heat-seeking technology that can uncover the presence. Well, I mean, there's only one way to find out, right? You gotta get in there. You gotta get down. Find some way to pop on in and see if you find a wooden structure, maybe some handwritten a signature of Noah, right? Good or go. There it is. Okay. Jones told GB News that he and his team collected 88 samples from inside and outside of the ship. The soil testing in the area showed extremely high levels of potassium consistent with massive amounts of decomposed lumber. Due to the extremely cold climate, many parts of the Ark is still intact and petrified. It spends almost 6 months out of the year completely frozen. Jones revealed that he and his team uncovered angular structures deep in 20 feet beneath the surface that could represent rooms. Okay. Make an ark out of gopher wood. Rooms that thou shalt make in the ark shall pitch it in and without with pitch. Tar. This is not what you would expect to see at a site if it were a solid rock or just mud flow debris. So that's what they're.
Let's move on to an astonishing development in Turkey. A research team in Turkey claims it may have identified the remains of Noah's Ark. The formation, which resembles the shape of a boat, lies about 6,500 feet up in the mountains of Ararat. Is that how you pronounce it, Simon?
Ararat.
Ararat. Apologies. It measures roughly 515 feet in.
Thanks for having me on. Well, most people would say, if they're not religious, that no, that's a fairy tale. And so this is why this site that we're investigating is very exciting, because we believe it actually matches what's in the biblical account.
So just remind our British viewers, and me included, because I've not read Genesis in detail. Of course, I know the rough outline of Noah's Ark, but what is the story of Genesis chapter 6, Noah's Ark?
Hi, I'm Ross Shaner, owner of Shaner Roofing. I know trust is earned. Shaner Roofing is committed to.
Well, in Genesis chapter 6, you have the story where God says that the earth is wicked and full of violence. And he finds one man and his family who found grace in God's eyes. And he tells Noah to build a giant ship made of wood and have it for the animals and his family to survive a global flood. And in Genesis chapter 8, you read that Moses wrote that the ark landed in the mountains of Ararat. And this is where we are researching right now. This site is right near, like 1 mile from the Iranian border in the mountains of Ararat.
It does look weird.
That's incredible.
Right?
So what have you found? These are the pictures on screen now. I'm not sure if you can see them. What are we looking at here, and what have you found?
Well, so this is the site itself was first discovered in 1959 by a Turkish army captain, İlhan Durapanar, and that's why it's called Durapanar Noah's Ark site. And it's been in the news in and out over the decades. But the reason why it's in the news again is because we have done new GPR scans in the last few years and new soil samples from the site. And the first thing I'd like to announce that we're finding below the ground, about 4 meters down, corridors, these tunnels that are going straight down the middle of the boat and on the inside edge of the ship shape. And then they're leading to a central cavity. I call it the atrium. And along this, you're looking at different voids. This is all below the ground. So we're using non-destructive techniques to explore this site, because right now we have not done anything related to excavations. And then the other thing we did in 2024, we took 88 random soil samples inside and outside of that ship shape. And what they showed was that the soil inside the ship shape was 3 times more having organic matter than right outside.
How are people reacting to this? Friendly reminder, everything in the Bible is true. Archaeologists are like catching up with the Bible. Ark raiders, some might say. Okay. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? I always think this kind of stuff is really fun and exciting. It's good to have your worldview reinforced by science, even if it's 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years behind, ahead. I think it's cool. Like, share, and subscribe if you do.
Okay, another mini video.
Testimony of Madison Taylor Brooks, the 14-year-old young lady who died for 12 minutes and said she met Jesus. And let me tell you this, it wrecked me. It hit me in the deepest part of my soul. She said that Jesus told her to warn us about these phones, these screens, that constant pull we have towards social media. And I'm not going to lie, it broke me because I'm guilty of this too. I scroll too much. I waste so many hours. I compare myself. I get angry. I disconnect. And here's this young lady, fresh from the arms of Jesus, saying all of this. The digital noise is pulling us away from God. Like, I know many of y'all may not believe her story, and that's fine. That's okay. But I felt it deep, deep in my spirit, like God is using her story to shake us, to wake us up. We've got to do better. Not for likes and not for clout, but for our souls. Because these devices, they're not just distractions. They are dangerous if we let them rule our lives. If you're struggling with anxiety, depression, anger, hate, maybe, just maybe, we need to put these things down, to be still, to let God in. Because the enemy thrives in the noise, but God shows up in the quiet. I'm not perfect, and I'll admit that I'm working on this too. Her story, though, it shook me. And maybe it will reach someone like it reached me. So take a breath. Look around. There's beauty out there. There's peace. And there's a God who has been trying to get your attention. So maybe today we scroll a little less. And we listen a little more. Madison, thank you for the reminder. You may be 14, sweetheart, but God definitely used you to reach a lot of us. I just listened.
How's that one?
Because I did today. I had front row seats. So I know we're all aware that those No King protests were going on today all across the great United States. Well, here in my town in Florida, we had 2 spots that they were protesting. And one of those places today just happened to be right outside the mall. So about 10 o'clock this morning, my daughters and I were on the way to the mall. You know, we were going to go do some retail therapy, you know, live the American dream. And we drive through this main intersection where they're all out there, you know, fighting the good fight, you know, the mean orange man that lives rent-free in their head. But anyways, we get to the mall, we park, we start walking in. As we're walking in, I look up at the sky that's behind the mall, and I'm like, ooh, that looks a little dark. That looks a little angry. That looks like it's about to drop the holy monsoons from the heavens. And oh, buddy, did it, because 2.5 seconds later, once we stepped foot inside that mall, oh, Lord, the Lord himself just opened up the heavens. I mean, it started pouring that daggum rain, and it started lightning and thundering. I mean, it was like Noah. It was biblical. And the next thing you know, you see those protesters just like cockroaches, every which direction, running for their daggum lives, okay? They come running into the mall looking like they were baptized against their own will. Looked like a bunch of freaking wet raccoons. I mean, signs falling apart, mascara running down their faces. Anyways, we were at the mall for a couple of hours, and it never stopped, okay? We left the mall, drove about 5 minutes down the road, and it was nothing but blue sky, sunshine, and the birds were. So apparently it was just raining right there over that one area where they were protesting. And it is still raining in that one area where they were protesting. It's pretty much like the Lord above said, you know what? You got about 30 minutes in. I think that's good enough. You need to go on and sit down. Lord, have y'all ever seen a protest get shut down?
Okay, a few important ones from her. Under 5, I think.
Would fall. Well, a bomb did fall, but it was in the Senate Banking Committee where Fed Chair nominee Kevin Warsh said this.
And while it's true that inflation is less problematic, meaning the rate of change in prices is less severe than it was some years ago, hardworking Americans are no doubt feeling it. I think that means a regime change in the conduct of policy.
He wants regime change at the Fed. Now, you probably didn't notice that because the press was focused on Senator Pocahontas calling Warsh a sock puppet for Donald Trump. Or you were being drawn into the social media storm about how Iran has Trump over a barrel. So you might have missed what is really going on. But the empire isn't missing it. On April 17th, the executive director of Britain's Chatham House asked this question: Iran, Pope, economy, how many battles can Trump fight at once? The answer is all of them, because they aren't separate battles. They're one war, a war against an imperial regime. Donald Trump knows it, and so does the empire. I'm Susan Kokinda, and I've known it too, tracking how the modern-day British Empire is the hand behind the catastrophes of recent decades. Now, people see and feel those catastrophes, but what they don't see is what is really behind them, and more important, how to defeat it. So if you want to join in the fight to defeat the imperial system, then hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons. Here's what I'm going to cover today. 1, what Kevin Warsh actually said, and why the regime change word is the most important thing spoken in Washington. 2, how the real regime change is what the administration is doing to bury the British free trade system. And 3, why Mark Carney wants to go to war to defend the old regime. Now, Kevin Warsh was chosen by President Trump because he's in sync with the administration's recognition that the Fed has failed the American people.
There's probably no more pressing question than the cost of living. So when over the course of the last several years, especially after COVID, when prices went up to the tune of 25 to 35% for virtually all deciles of the American people, that's an indication that the Fed missed its mark. And we are still dealing with the legacy of the policy errors in 2021 and 2022. And so the fatal policy error going back 4 or 5 years is still a legacy that we're dealing with. We need, in my judgment, fundamental policy reform.
Yesterday, everyone was watching the Iran clock and asking,
Hey, our one lady from TikTok. Did you guys hear this yesterday? I don't know if I played it or not.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred. This is an important case brought by President Trump's administration. We're thankful to the president for his leadership and funding of not just the FBI and DOJ, but his commitment to go out there and wipe out fraud and conspiracy and waste and abuse wherever it occurs, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Even though this money was made to appear to be coming from legitimate people and legitimate entities, we at the FBI, with our great partners at the Department of Justice and in the state of Alabama, were able to comb through a decade worth of material, a scheme that took a decade to build, so that we were able to follow the money, because money never lies, and they got caught. As the Attorney General said, these charges are varying, they are widespread and wide-ranging, and this investigation is very much ongoing. Today, we're here to announce the charges of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this investigation and the individuals who are responsible will be brought to justice. Thank you, General. What we're here today is to...
Okay, ladies on cash. Now we got the other lady from TikTok.
President Trump posted this Elon Musk video to Truth Social on Saturday.
The jackals, hyenas, they're barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes.
You guys remember that, don't you?
The food, it's in his domain. They do this, and they get closer and closer and bolder, till one day, that lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody, runs like the wind, eats everything in his path. Because every once in a while, the lion has to show the jackals who he is.
There's a good reason for it. Former U.S. Attorney and Special Counsel Joseph DeGenova has been sent to the Southern District of Florida to head up the prosecution of John Brennan and others. DeGenova and his wife, Victoria Tenzing, a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under Reagan, are experienced trial lawyers who know the intelligence community inside and out. The New York Times calls DeGenova a washed-up, cultish Trump lawyer pursuing the president's unhinged grievances. They note it's all before Judge Eileen Keenan, who already tossed Jack Smith's classified documents case right into the trash. Here's FBI Director Kash Patel on Maria Bartiromo's show yesterday.
I can announce on your show that we've got all the information we need. We're working with our prosecutors at the Department of Justice and Attorney General Todd Blanche, and we are going to be making arrests, and it's coming, and I promise you, it's coming soon.
And while all this unfolds, J.D. Vance is simultaneously representing the president at Iran peace negotiations and heading the new National Fraud Task Force, which has already suspended 221 hospice and healthcare providers in California and made its first arrest in Los Angeles on April 2nd. That task force will now pursue how much of the Medicare, Medicaid, and other safety net fraud ends up in Democratic Party coffers. It's a time bomb which will explode sensationally before the midterms. Justice is coming, and it's coming soon. So those Democratic politicians and others loudly undermining the United States and the president during this war are, ironically, only prolonging it by giving the RNC and the UK. Now,
Okay, that was her other partner there. I'm going to read the Bill of Rights, you guys. Has anybody read that before? I got this on Watch the Waters channel. So we'll do some reading. Freedom of speech, religious, press, assembly, and petition. You have the right to express your beliefs and opinions. That was 1. 2, right to bear arms, the right to own and carry a weapon. 3, no quartering of soldiers. Soldiers cannot be forced into private homes. 4, protection from unreasonable searches and seizures. Warrants are required for search. 5, rights of accused, due process, no self-incrimination, double jeopardy protection. 6, right to a fair and speedy trial, includes jury trial, legal counsel, and knowing the charge. 7, right to jury trial in civil case or dispute over money or property. Number 8, no cruel or unusual punishment, no excessive bail or fines, bail or fine. And number 9, right not listed still exists. People have rights behind those written. Okay, I'll get number 10 here. Can't see it. Can't read number 10. Darn it. Powers reserved to the states or the people, limits on federal government authority. I just found that on Watch the Waters. I figured out was something different to read. Okay, see where I'm at here. 5 minutes.
That humanity has ever constructed in the modern world, and yet this giant is currently dying. At first glance, everything seems perfect as families enjoy their summer vacations on houseboats, drifting peacefully across the deep blue waters under the bright Arizona sun. But when we cut to the massive wall of concrete known as the Glen Canyon Dam, the illusion of safety shatters into 1,000 pieces of terrifying reality. Standing over 700 feet tall, this structure is equivalent to a 50-story skyscraper made of enough concrete to pave a highway from San Francisco to New York. In the early months of 2023, the water levels plunged to a staggering 22% of its total capacity, the lowest point in its entire history. The surface dropped to within 30 feet of the minimum power pool, which is the height of a 3-story building, threatening to shut down the hydroelectric generators forever. This is not just a remote lake for tourists. It is the lifeblood for 40 million people across 7 different states, providing water and electricity to massive cities. From the neon lights of Las Vegas to the sprawling suburbs of Phoenix and Los Angeles, the survival of the American West depends entirely on this single failing system. If this dam fails to release water, the taps in millions of homes will run dry, and the lights of the great desert metropolises will blink out into darkness. However, The most terrifying part
How's
is
this
not
one,
that the
guys?
water is disappearing. It is that the entire system was designed around a number that simply never existed. We are witnessing the slow collapse of a dream built on faulty data, an empire of dust where the physics of nature is finally reclaiming its ancient, sovereign territory. To understand why we are standing on the brink of disaster, we must travel back in time to the year 1922 in the city of Santa Fe. 7 men, led by future President Herbert Hoover, gathered to divide the liquid gold of the Colorado River among the growing states of the American West. They believed they were masters of the desert, capable of taming a wild river and securing the prosperity of their people for many centuries to come. At that time, their primary goal was simple: provide a legal framework to share the water before the fastest growing regions could claim every single drop for themselves. They looked at the data they had collected over 17 years, from 1895 until the year they sat down to sign the historic agreement. According to their measurements, the river flowed with a mighty average of 17.5 million acre-feet of water every year, a seemingly endless supply. Confidently, they signed the Colorado River Compact, allocating 7.5 million acre-feet to both the upper and lower basins, plus a share for Mexico. But there was a fatal flaw in their logic that no one in that room could have possibly predicted or even dared to imagine at the time. The 17-year period they used to calculate the future of the entire western United States happened to be the wettest era in over 1,000 years. They were essentially basing the survival of 40 million people on a statistical anomaly, a brief moment of abundance in an otherwise arid and harsh landscape. Modern science, through the study of ancient tree rings, has since revealed the brutal truth that the river actually averages only 13 to 14 million acre-feet. This means that since the very first day the compact was signed, the states have been legally entitled to more water than the river actually provides. We have spent the last 100 years living on a massive water credit card, spending wealth that nature never actually deposited into our collective bank account. Every single year, there is a massive gap between what people are promised on paper and what actually flows through the canyons toward the thirsty cities. Since the year 2000, the situation has turned from a quiet concern into a loud, screaming emergency as the average flow dropped even further. We are now seeing an average of only 12.4 million acre-feet, while the total legal allocations remain stuck at 17.5 million. This creates a massive hole in the system of 5 million acre-feet every year, water that simply vanishes into the hot air and the dry soil. You might wonder why no one has simply fixed the treaty or changed the numbers to reflect the harsh reality of the 21st century climate. The answer is found in the complex web of politics and greed, where no state is willing to give up its legal right to the water. Changing the compact would mean admitting that the growth of cities like Phoenix and Las Vegas might have to stop, a reality no politician wants to face. So, the illusion continues. You are looking at one of the most magnificent engineering.
Okay, interesting video. Colorado News with Nick Shirley. 5 minutes.
Freedom Festival announcement to new policy fights, public safety decisions, and growing concerns around transparency and accountability, as there always are. Here is your Mountain Minute for Thursday, April 23rd. Let's get into it. We start with a big Rocky Mountain Boys update. In case you missed it yesterday, our big announcement, tickets are now live for the Rocky Mountain Boys Freedom Festival, and we've announced our first keynote speaker. The one and only Nick Shirley, one of the fastest rising independent journalists in the country, will headline the Mountain Majesty Gala. You probably know him from his fraud investigation in Minnesota or California, but he's built a huge reputation for just unfiltered firsthand coverage, which is what we're all about here at Rocky Mountain Boys. So we are so excited. The two-day event happening June 26th and 27th in Castle Rock is expected to bring together more than 2,000 attendees, over 30 speakers. focusing on awareness, action, and advocacy. It's family friendly with a carnival, rodeo, and firework finale. So make sure you click the link in the show notes or the caption to go and get your tickets. Now to Colorado news. In Aurora, city leaders have rejected a proposed agreement outlining how local police would respond to emergencies at the ICE detention facility. Supporters say the agreement would simply clarify rules for public safety, but after public backlash, council members voted it down, with critics arguing it could indirectly support federal immigration enforcement. Imagine that. At the Capitol, a new bill called the No Kings Act is drawing intense debate. The proposal would allow individuals to sue public officials in the state court if they believe their constitutional rights have been violated. Supporters say it strengthens accountability, but critics warn it could open the door to a wave of politically motivated lawsuits and expand legal risk for public officials. Meanwhile, lawmakers are also dealing with internal scrutiny. A legislative ethics panel is now reviewing allegations that a House Democratic caucus leader may have mismanaged party funds, including oversight of accounts and expenditures tied to caucus operations. The outcome could raise broader questions about transparency and financial oversight inside the legislature. Out in Southern Colorado, residents are facing a different kind of concern: power reliability. Xcel Energy is planning public safety power shutoffs, impacting about 7,100 customers in the San Luis Valley due to extreme wildfire risk driven by drought, high winds, and dry conditions. It's another sign of how environmental conditions and energy policy are colliding across the state. On the policy side, a new commentary is raising questions about where liberty-minded voters go in today's political landscape, especially those who feel disconnected from both major parties. The argument is that many voters are turning to issue-based advocacy groups focused on fiscal responsibility, transparency, and limited government, rather than traditional party structures. And in public health, a deeper look at Colorado's measles cases is challenging simplified narratives. A recent outbreak tied to travel through Denver International Airport led to multiple infections, including among vaccinated individuals. While broader data shows declining vaccination rates and localized gaps are key drivers of spread, the takeaway: the issue is complex and the causes go beyond any single political explanation. Now to national headlines. The Department of Justice has announced a sweeping indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center, alleging the organization funneled more than $3 million to individuals tied to extremist groups while presenting itself as working against extremism. The charges include wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, and officials claim the organization's actions directly contradicted its stated missions. And in another major political development, a redistricting battle in Virginia is drawing national attention. Critics argue a proposed map could dramatically reshape representation by eliminating most GOP-leaning districts, raising concerns about gerrymandering and fairness in elections. For more reporting like this every day, make sure you subscribe here to Rocky Mountain.
Okay, today's Colorado news there. She does a good job. Next three are clips, and I got a one. Nick, we haven't played a couple days. He has a 15-minute one.
I'm being careful here because I've gotten in big trouble for these videos. We were told that she was there and the kids were there and they ran up to him and all of this stuff. And so I never actually thought to question that. It was all over that they were there. Someone in my comments was like, I don't know if they were there. And so I started looking into it and they weren't. So I find it very strange that that was the initial reporting. But even stranger, she wasn't there because her mom had a doctor's appointment that day, same time. But also when she was interviewed, she said that when she went to the hospital to see him, the guard in the hospital was like, you don't want to go see him. And she was like, no, I want to go see him. I want to see what they did to him. Okay. When the chief of staff was being interviewed, he says, I called her and I said, he's been shot, they shot him. Then Candace Owens has shown a video of one of his ex-close friends standing against a wall. It's the footage that I think many of us have seen. And he's not shaking when he finds out. He's not anything. He's just reporting right away. But he says They shot him. And to me, how the fuck do you know it's they? To me, it would be, he shot, someone shot him, he's been shot. But all of them said they. And you arrest one guy, dismantles the gun, makes a shot from that angle, takes off, puts the gun together, throws it in the woods. I'm not buying it. I've got a lot more coming. Stay tuned. Original.
Okay, one of our favorite ladies there. One more.
Watches people for a living. It was really alarming to see her behavior, and she gave away so much in that hearing alone, even though she really didn't answer anything. I spent my career in the intelligence community and now have a corporate intelligence firm. I help venture capitalists and mergers and acquisitions, like a private equity realm, figure out what's not on the due diligence, right? So normal due diligence looks at numbers and the things that the company gives them, does a little bit of background research, but 80% of these fail because everyone's going to present well on paper or they don't catch these litigations. And so I come in, watch someone say, is there a red flag? Like, should you go deeper in the leadership culture, whatever it is that I find, and then go find more. I mean, I've uncovered tens of millions of dollars of fraud. I've uncovered like CEOs that have lied and almost gone to prison. It gets ugly. But I do this because I watch people. And so yesterday when Pam Bondi was on the stand, there were two questions that she was asked that I want to talk about, and then I want to talk about her behavior. The first one was, did you know, or what was your role in Ghislaine Maxwell moving to a minimum security prison? And she was not answering questions, right? Like we saw her deflect, which we'll get into. But for this one, she said, I wasn't told until after the fact. Well, I did a TikTok last week on Todd Blanche and how I think based on watching him, he's actually the one running the show and Pam Bondi is covering for him. He was brought on as Trump's personal lawyer to run the e-files and make it go away. And yesterday, the fact that she didn't know, that told me a lot. Second question that was interesting was, are there investigations going on in the Department of Justice for some of these men? And she answered, there are investigations. Well, that's not an answer. That is how you answer a question that you're trying to dance around. Yeah, there are investigations. You're the fucking DOJ. Are they of men of the Epstein files? Are they of people that we don't know about? Is it of the Clintons? Because technically they could be investigated right now. The way that she answered that question told me that she was lying without lying. All right, let's go move on to her behavior. I think that she is very bad under pressure. And it looked like she was about to have a panic attack yesterday. Her breathing was really heavy. She was reacting very emotionally, very easily triggered. I could crack her in 30 minutes. That is how just terrible under pressure she is. And that told me that she is not the one doing the bad things, because you would be a lot calmer if you were trying to cover that up. She's told to cover it up for other people, and she doesn't necessarily know what's happening. That's what I think. They're compartmentalizing the information so that she can go up there and deflect and talk about other things. And she actually doesn't know, but she doesn't want to tell people that she doesn't know what's going on in her office. That is a personal opinion. And her deflection was off the charts. Anybody, this is my problem with the left. Well, I have a lot of problems with the left, but anybody who sits there when you say a point that's valid or ask a question and they just deflect to something else is obviously uncomfortable. Okay, that is their way to not answer the question. And it is a big tell when somebody does that constantly. I mean, she talked about the stock market. She threw stuff up in people's faces. Like, she wasn't going there to answer any questions, which means I really do think that she doesn't know a lot and they're keeping her in the dark. And they told her not to mess up. But yeah, her emotional outburst showed me that you get her in an interrogation room or question her for a little bit, get the right person to question her because you can see her weaknesses. I want to talk about Pam Bondi's hearing.
Okay, a former three-letter word lady. That's good.
Funneling money to extremist groups on both sides. the KKK and the National Socialists of America in order to commit crimes. Oh, and it gets better. So Kash Patel and the FBI announced that there are indictments against the Southern Poverty Law Center for this very reason. So, reporter, you're alleging that the Southern Poverty Law Center was paying leaders of the KKK and other groups? Acting AG Todd Blanche, I'm not alleging it. The grand jury returned an indictment that says it. And when I said it gets better, hold on, it gets better. So one of the groups that they were funneling money to was Unite the Right. Does that sound familiar to you? It should. Unite the Right was the Charlottesville group. Do you remember when that happened? And that was used against Trump for years. Do you remember when that was used as the whole basis for Joe Biden running to be the president, and the entire thing was funded by the Southern Poverty Law Center, or so it looks? That is very, very interesting. So you're telling me that the Southern Poverty Law Center was funneling money to extremist groups on both sides, the KKK and the National Socialists of America, in order to commit crimes? Oh, and it gets better. So Kash Patel and
Okay, she's getting better with her videos. One more short, and we get to the Nick and a few more mini videos. Maybe a Trish video. I'll be back at 7, you guys. I've still got a little bit longer here. We'll go to probably 5 o'clock. Come back at 7.
Oversight Committee's discussions regarding a potential pardon of Ghislaine Maxwell. I want to break that down a little bit and discuss some other things that I think are going on behind the scenes. So James Comer, who is a Republican, who's the head of the House Oversight Committee, has said he does not agree with a pardon of her. Just in looking at the statements that have come out, again, not taking political sides, it seems like it's Republicans who seem to be split on whether or not a pardon should occur. Democrats have said none of them agree a pardon. Democrats on the committee have said that none of them agree with a pardon. So I'm not exactly sure where that split is. They're not naming who the House members are who are for a pardon or against a pardon unless they sort of, I guess, self-identify. So a couple things I wanted to say here in regards to a pardon. My guess is sort of that pro side is, well, we could get information, real information from her on other perpetrators that we can prosecute and gain actionable information for indictments. I understand that perspective, but the problem with Maxwell is she has actually shown herself to not be someone who maintains their word on deals. So recently, as you all know, I covered that on here. She was moved to that minimum security prison in Bryan, Texas, and was granted some immunity in that 2-hour conversation that she had, and she pled the fifth. So she got all of those things, but did nothing really in return. And so in my opinion, this is not some woman who's going to keep her word. When people show you who they are, believe them. Obviously, she's a convicted abuser as well. And so I think that's one big issue that I see is what are we really going to gain from her? The other issue is the former Prince Andrew. Obviously, he's been stripped of his title. Y'all may or may not know that King Charles is coming to the U.S. next week for a state visit. Now, state visits with royal officials, members of the royal family, are not necessarily weird. They definitely happen a lot. It's the addressing to Congress that is definitely rare. Queen Elizabeth last did it in 1991. This is going to be interesting because he is going to address Congress. Do I think he's going to speak about Andrew? No, I don't. But I do wonder what may happen behind the scenes with him and President Trump regarding all of that, because now Andrew has been indicted on charges and there is push here in the U.S. To prosecute him as well. Obviously, that's just my own analysis of that. I don't have hard information to back that up, but I do find that to be a very interesting coincidence, especially given all of this talk about a pardon. So let me know what you think.
Okay. I don't know. I cut her off there a little bit. Sorry. All right, we got Nick and a couple other ones. Stop it. Just a minute. Just a minute. Go to get you. All right. Get up there.
Launched a war over the ballots in Wayne County, Michigan. Now, this is a pretty big deal because Wayne County, Michigan contains Detroit. And Detroit, we know, is a hotbed of corruption. And it is quite possibly the most controversial and corrupt county in America as it pertains to elections. Now, this is part of an ongoing saga. We know that the DOJ and the FBI have seized evidence from both Atlanta, Georgia, and Maricopa County, Arizona. But the difference here is that the DOJ is seeking evidence related to the 2024 election as opposed to the 2020 election. And my assumption is that the reason we're going for 2024 is because the 2020 election has already been destroyed. States are required by federal law to retain the election records for a period of 22 months, and we are well outside of that window. Atlanta and Maricopa County were different because in Atlanta, there was an ongoing court case, and there was a court order to preserve that evidence, so we still had it. And in Maricopa, there was a Cyber Ninjas audit following the election where they took high-resolution forensic images of all the ballots. And so we were able to get that evidence. But in Detroit, Michigan, there was no court order. There was no Cyber Ninjas audit. The 2020 election evidence is gone. So the DOJ is pursuing evidence from the 2024 election. This is the demand letter sent by Harmeet Dillon, who heads the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, sent to the Honorable Kathy M. Garrett, the Wayne County Clerk of Elections. So they're seeking 800,000 plus ballots, along with all the other election records surrounding those ballots, and they are trying to investigate and prosecute individuals who may have registered to vote or voted in violation of federal law. Now, the federal government does have jurisdiction, even though the Constitution lays out that states are to set the time, place, and manner of how elections are conducted. There are federal laws like the Civil Rights Act of 1960, which the DOJ is using to justify its investigation, that give jurisdiction to the federal government to look under the hood. So they've sent a demand letter, and in this letter, they're citing their reasoning, their logic behind why they're pursuing this evidence, citing a few instances of known prosecuted fraud in Wayne County, Michigan. They're citing a case with Nancy Juanita Williams, who forged her signature on absentee ballot and ballot envelopes and received payment to influence the vote. Carlos Clark, who impersonated another voter to vote in an election, and John Paul Perena. Now, these are pretty small-scale cases, but the idea here is to give instances of people that were charged and convicted of election fraud. But they go on to list evidence from the 2020 election, major improprieties and discrepancies that were never really fully explained, like how election workers counted ballots from voters whose names failed to appear in the qualified voter file in 2020. They instructed election workers not to verify the signatures on absentee ballots and to backdate absentee ballots, as well as process such ballots regardless of their validity. They cite the fact that election officials announced the last absentee ballot had been received, yet another batch of unsecured and unsealed ballots showed up, in the middle of the night without envelopes, arriving in trays at the TCF Center, where tens of thousands of absentee ballots, and apparently every ballot, was counted and attributed only to Democrats. And they just go on down the list of major discrepancies from the 2020 election and say, based on this history of fraud and other allegations, concerning the election procedures in Wayne County, and for the purpose of ensuring that the foregoing federal election laws were not violated in the 2024 federal election, we are requesting that you produce the following election-related records: all ballots, including absentee and provisional, ballot receipts, and ballot envelopes. And so we're basically citing the fraud from 2020 to justify investigating 2024 to see if they did the same thing in 2024. Now, something important to note here is that this is simply a demand letter from the DOJ, and we know they're not going to comply with it. In fact, I'm about to share with you their response. Obviously, they're not going to willingly hand this stuff over. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why are we sending a letter and basically tipping them off to give them the opportunity to cover their tracks? And here's the deal. If you want to go kick in the door and take this stuff, then you need to establish probable cause that a crime has been committed, and you need a perpetrator, you need a specific person, and a specific crime. And if we don't have that, then here's the only way we can really proceed here: sending a demand letter, establishing that we asked nicely first, and then going to get a court order telling a judge, look, we have jurisdiction. Here's the federal statute. Here's our justification for this. We asked nicely. They didn't comply. So now we need a court order. So they're creating a record that these county officials refused to comply with a polite letter. And that sets up the legal justification to escalate to get a court order. And here's what Harmeet Dillon says at the end: produce these records within 14 days from the receipt of this letter, and failure to timely produce the requested records may result in the United States seeking a court order for the production of such records. So like I said, polite letter first, court order second. You have to give them the opportunity to comply before you can go to a judge, because the judge, if you do that first, the judge is just going to say, well, why don't you just ask them first? And then it's just going to get, basically tossed. So you have to ask first.
I wanted a trip I'd never forget. The hotel was so beautiful. People, flavors, new experiences. Chase Sapphire Reserve.
I'm the edema building up in your lower legs, and most compression socks can't even touch me. Let me show you.
If you don't have the means of getting a search warrant and you don't have a grand jury subpoena or an indictment or anything of that nature. Now, as you can probably already imagine, the county officials and the state officials in Michigan are refusing to comply. Jocelyn Benson, Dana Nessel, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer have already pushed back against the demand, saying Michigan's elections are safe and secure, and any attempt to suggest otherwise is an attempt to take away Michiganders' constitutional right to vote. This was Governor Whitmer. I said that on accident, but it fits. Governor Whitmer, the three witches of Michigan are all issuing statements to say we will not comply. So obviously we're going to have to advance to the next phase, which is going to be a court order. And so that's the latest. And I want you guys to understand the context here. If you notice, the Civil Rights Division is trying to investigate and prosecute individuals who may have not just cast ballots, but registered to vote in violation of federal law. So they want to investigate who was registered to vote and who voted in violation of federal law. And that ties directly into the ongoing legal fight over the state's voter rolls, which they're also in refusal to turn over. So the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ is coming at Michigan and Detroit on two fronts. They want to get the voter rolls so they can cross-check the state's voter rolls against federal databases to see the immigration status of the people on the voter rolls and find people that are registered that are undocumented or are not legally eligible to be on the voter rolls. And then they want the ballot envelopes, the ballot receipts, the absentee and provisional ballots so that they can prove conclusively that these people that are illegally registered to vote cast ballots in the election. And at that point, then you've got yourself potential indictments for crimes. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to give you the latest on this. I absolutely can't believe I haven't heard anybody cover this story, and it could be because it's in the early stages and we haven't seen like a huge amount of action yet. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to keep you guys filled in and clued into what's going on, because I do believe that in a matter of time, this will become a much, much bigger situation than it is today. So ladies and gentlemen, like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish the last one off with the new guy on YouTube. Let me know if he's good or not. No, stopped it. Back at 7.
Special shower for Max. Hakeem Jeffrey unfortunately has what I call evil character face, and there's nothing racial about this. In case you want to jump to that, this is nothing racial. But his eyes look like he was created in a laboratory to be Dr. Evil squared. And every time he talks, I think to myself, really? That's your leader? You picked the only person who looks like he's planning to kill you. I mean, he looks like your cat. You ever see a cat when your cat is really unhappy and you can't miss it because it's all over the cat's face? Hakeem Jeffries seems like an angry cat. He's got that face that just looks like, I don't even like you. I wouldn't even care. If you died on the streets, I wouldn't even care. If you were on fire, I wouldn't urinate on you. Look at my eyes. Do I look like I care?
Smash the like button if you guys thought that was funny. But until I saw that, I never really noticed that about Hakeem Jeffries, because I've always been focused on the delirious, confused, slam poetry kind of way he speaks. But then I saw a picture that made me realize this guy is totally right. I'm going to throw on screen the picture that I used for the thumbnail of this video, because it explains what the guy said so much. Look at how his eyes are just empty and lifeless and soulless. They lack emotion or warmth. It's like a weird, beady-eyed, vacant stare. And when you combine that with the incoherent, stuttery way that Hakeem speaks, he might officially now be the creepiest politician in Washington, D.C. But now for the good stuff. Here is a clip from an interview Hakeem recently did. And this is what set Democrats off and prompted them to call for Hakeem to be primaried and removed as the speaker for the Democrat Party.
I think the D.C. Attorney General issued a strong letter making it clear that, in his view, in the assessment of the authorities in the District of Columbia, whoever Donald Trump seeks to install allegedly to run the Metropolitan Police Department of Washington, D.C., has no authority, and that they should continue to take direction solely from the police chief of the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. I thought that was a strongly worded letter. He cited a lot of statutory provisions. I think the Attorney General was exactly right.
The reason they are kicking Hakeem Jeffries out of the Democrat Party is because he is praising and applauding a strongly worded letter. As I've talked about in many videos, this problem is one of the Democrats' own creation. They turned the temperature up so high because they thought it was their only strategy in which they could beat Donald Trump in the election. They had to try to demonize his character and his intentions so severely that they resorted to calling him the second coming of Adolf Hitler, that he was a fascist, white supremacist Nazi, that he was coming to erode the foundations of our republic and replace it with a dictator nightmare. They said Donald Trump would make America look unrecognizable, that we wouldn't have elections anymore, that women were going to lose their rights, that minorities were going to be subjugated and oppressed, that the lives of every American were going to be demonstrably worse because of Donald Trump. So when you tell your supporters this so they'll ignore your shortcomings and excuse your failures, they're expecting you to fight to stop this takeover from happening. And for 8 months now, Democrat politicians have been feeding their supporters nothing burgers. Failure after failure, performative stunt and sing-song protests. They've done absolutely nothing to hinder Donald Trump's agenda or accomplishments, but have completely humiliated themselves and reduced the confidence their supporters have in them to zero in the process. The radical, violent Democrat base wants to see their politicians getting shot by military to prove their point, to show they're staking their lives on the line to protect democracy. And Hakeem Jeffries is applauding strongly worded letters to combat the authoritarian takeover. Let's see what some Democrats are saying on X, and then we'll take a look at MSNBC calling for Hakeem to be primaried. This guy says, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but you are not the right person for this job. This is a war. We are in a war, and you don't write or praise strongly worded letters in a war. You are ineffective. You lack ideas. Step down. Another person says Hakeem Jeffries is a lifetime. That's all there is to it. I mean, these people are pissed. They are not playing around here. Someone else says Hakeem Jeffries is weak and useless. I can't wait for him to lose his job. Now, we know people on social media are usually the most radical and outspoken, but this sentiment has hit the mainstream Democrat media. Here they are on MSNBC saying it's time for Hakeem to be primaried.
Zohran Mamdani won in Hakeem Jeffries' own district by double digits, by around 12 points. So this is just basically a siren call for anybody in DSA or anybody who is closely associated with Zohran Mamdani to primary Hakeem Jeffries in his own district. I think that's going to be happening also in Dan Goldman's district, et cetera. What people don't understand, I think, about the pro-Palestine issue is that it's a litmus test for folks. If you can be brave and stand up against this genocide, then we can trust you on a variety of different issues. And Zohran didn't win in spite of his pro-Palestine position. He won a majority of Jewish voters because of it. Yeah. And that is what Jeffries is incapable of responding to as somebody who takes money from AIPAC. And it's why Democratic leadership is bogging down this party right now. We need a change in leadership, because if you can't harness this energy right now, you are basically saying, we don't care if Donald Trump wins over and over again, and this authoritarian takeover continues, because they're rejecting grassroots energy in favor of donors, and that's the core of the problem right now.
Now, the lady highlighted two key problems that are of the Democrats' making. Number one, they made their identity and platform completely about resisting and opposing Donald Trump. This has led to the party's frustration and disappointment with their politicians not doing enough to actually combat and fight Trump in a serious, meaningful way. And the second problem is due to their complete obsession and hyperfixation on Donald Trump and not actually standing for any policies that benefit American people. This has allowed candidates like Zohran Mamdani, AOC, Bernie Sanders to fill the void, to gain support from people who actually want to hear their Democrat politicians talk about solutions. No matter how misguided and radical they might be, like socialism is, they're at least talking to the voters about trying to fix their problems through policy, not fixing their problems by opposing Donald Trump and then falling flat on their face every time they try. The Democrat establishment is fighting for their own survival and retention of power. They aren't concerned with the actual needs of Americans. They're frantically trying to hold on to whatever bit of institutional control they still might have. And the reason the establishment hates Zohran Mamdani so much, even though he's a leftist socialist, is because he's an anti-establishment populist candidate, much like Donald Trump, just with different ideas. And that's why Hakeem refuses to endorse him. But the Democrat base sees Hakeem Jeffries trying to snuff out Zohran Mamdani's flame and are realizing what the rest of us already know about the Democrat Party. They're ineffective, corrupt, power-hungry politicians who believe they aren't there to serve the people are there to serve their agenda. Watch this MSNBC host who has Hakeem Jeffries on his podcast press him about why he won't endorse Zohran Mamdani and starts to get pissed off at Hakeem's answer.
I guess I don't understand what the holdup is on endorsing Zohran Mamdani in the mayor's race. Could you explain that to me?
Yeah, so I didn't know Zohran at all. First time I ever sat down and met with him was last month, in connection with him becoming the Democratic nominee. It was a good conversation. He was out in East New York in that part of the district. That's very important to me, very important to Brooklyn, very important to the city of New York. Often doesn't get a lot of attention. In that conversation, he asked me to put together a follow-up meeting with some community leaders in many of the neighborhoods that I represent, which I told him I would do. We're setting that in motion. Should occur within the next few weeks. And then once that meeting takes place, along with some other conversations that he's having with members of the congressional delegation, and then I'll make a decision thereafter.
Ironically, the only skill that the Democrats have, that they're exceedingly superior than the Republicans at, is their ability to say absolutely nothing when answering a question. It's like every word that they say goes through 3 or 4 layers of woke filtering in their brain before it comes out of their mouth, making sure not to say anything that pins them over here, or pins them over there, or reveals too much about this, or might offend someone here, or might turn off this voting block there. They never just speak authentically and casually. That's why they struggle so much when they try to get all personable and real and go on these podcasts, because their inability to be authentic or genuine comes through as glaringly obvious. And people enjoy consuming information through this kind of medium because it doesn't come with the upper management pushed narratives and focus group curated talking points. But that's the only place where Democrats know how to exist. And it always comes off as dry and dull every time they do an internet interview. But surprisingly, the host actually pushes back Hakeem's non-answer and starts to get more frustrated as Hakeem keeps trying to avoid giving him an answer.
Okay. I guess I was a Republican up till 2 minutes ago, and I'm a capitalist, and I had Zoran on, and I went at him on a variety of issues we disagree on, but like, it's not really a close call, is it? I mean, you have a corrupt mayor that is doing deals with Donald Trump. You had a guy that had to resign in disgrace that already lost a Democratic primary. I don't like. It's not a close call, right? Why not just endorse him and then work with him?
Well, I think what I can say is that he's the only one I'm scheduled to talk to.
Okay. Why not just let's just get it over with though? Why you're prolonging the pain, leader? Why not just endorse Zoran? It's not that hard, right?
Well, listen. I understand, but you know, it's not like things aren't happening. I was just in Chicago. I was in Texas. I was in California.
Right.
We're in the middle of an unprecedented redistricting war. Literally,
doing it. I know. I said just do it, get it out the way. I'm anti Zoran. I'm not even really. I don't even really like. You know, we have a lot of disagreements, but I mean, come on. Anyway, all right.
These are the Sony WF-1000 XM6.
Okay, that was just about the end of the video. What do you guys think of that guy? So I found that 16-minute video on Clinton about getting arrested. I don't know if you get that one channel. I can't remember that guy and that lady. Can't remember what their channel is, but I got that one. I got 2 Dougs for later. And the 9-minute one from the news guy, TikTok. Then the X2 report will play late. But Maria, are you still here? What should I play that hour 1 tonight or not? With Holly and that one guy? I'll play it second hour. We'll do the short videos on the first hour, and then we'll play that hour one. What I showed her at the beginning. So everybody have a good break. Fill up on dinner, and I'll see you back after dinner time, and go another 3 hours. Not much going on tonight. So, thanks, mods. Hey, Carol, Flying Eagle, Lucy, Tim. And none of the new people came in tonight. Must be lurking. Let's see, none of the new ones. Oh, Spas came in. Yep, it's ladies' night, so all new names. Tim, for the next night show. All right, God bless you all. Love all, but please like. Stay safe, stay strong, keep your faith. Never go up. And signing off for show number 1 on a Thursday. Chico and Dude.